My name is Julia, and I'm 29 years old. I never thought the person I trusted the most could betray me in such a brutal way. But when I found out about my husband's affair, it wasn't just my heart that shattered. My entire world was turned upside down. I had spent years working tirelessly to support his dreams, thinking that by putting his success first, we would build the future we both wanted. But that day, when I uncovered the truth, everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust came crashing down. It was as if my whole life had been built on a lie. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I uncovered a secret about his affair that changed everything. It wasn't just an affair. It was a betrayal so deep, it shook me to my core. Keep watching to find out the shocking way I exposed him and how, in the end, I took back control of my future. You won't believe what I did next. If you want to see how this story unfolds and experience the full shock of what happens next, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss this. And for years, I thought I had everything I ever wanted. A beautiful home, a loving husband, and a life I dreamed of. We were a perfect team, or at least that's what I told myself. Every morning, we woke up together, planned our day, and worked towards our future. He was my rock, and I was his support. I believed in our love, in the life we were building. We were successful. We had everything people envied, and I had convinced myself that everything was right in the world. But somewhere along the way, there were cracks I couldn't see. I had put my life on hold, my dreams, my desires to focus on him, his career, his success, his happiness. I thought that by supporting him, I was building something that we would both share and cherish for years to come. I was so blinded by what I thought was true love, I missed the signs right in front of me. For the longest time, I believed that love meant sacrifice, giving up my needs for his, my dreams for his, and I had no problem with that. But the thing about sacrificing yourself is that, at some point, you forget who you are. I became so engrossed in his world, in supporting him, that I forgot to pay attention to the subtle shifts in ours. Little things, at first. His late nights, his distant looks, his sudden unavailability. But I told myself it was all part of the job. After all, we had a life together. Or so I thought. It wasn't until much later that I started to question everything. I never imagined I'd be the one to discover an affair. After all, we had built a life together. We were a team, right? We loved each other. Or so I thought. But everything changed the moment I found out about her. The moment I realized I wasn't the only one he was loving. That day, my world began to unravel, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the truth. It all started innocently enough. Nothing that would have made me think that anything was wrong. One day, I was just going about my usual routine, picking up around the house, trying to keep everything running smoothly. It was one of those rare moments when everything seemed perfect, until I found it. I was putting some of his things away when I noticed his phone left unlocked on the table. My heart sank. I wasn't the kind of person to snoop, but something inside me urged me to look. It was like a feeling of dread that I couldn't shake off. As I glanced at his phone, I saw a message pop up. A message meant to be hidden. It wasn't just any message. It was from her. The moment I saw it, I knew. I knew that everything I thought I knew was a lie. The message was intimate, filled with words I never thought he'd say to anyone but me. And suddenly, everything I had trusted about him, about us, came crashing down. That was the moment my world came crashing down. I had always thought that I would never be the one to find out about an affair. After all, we had built a life together. We were partners, but that one text shattered my entire perception of our marriage. It was the hardest thing I'd ever read, and it left me breathless. It wasn't just a message. It was the truth I'd been avoiding for months, maybe even years. What happened after that message would leave my husband and everyone else speechless. I never imagined that a single text could destroy everything, but that's exactly what it did. As I sat there, staring at that message, I realized that this wasn't just about one affair. It wasn't about a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was the unraveling of everything I had ever believed in. it wasn't just betrayal. It was a web of lies, carefully spun to hide the truth from me. What I uncovered about the affair wasn't just betrayal. It was something far deeper, far darker than I could have ever imagined. What my husband was hiding from me. Well, it wasn't just an affair. It was a secret so deep, so devastating, it shook me to my core. I found out that not only had he been seeing her for months, but he had also been lying about our finances. He was spending money on her, on their time together, while I was at home, believing that we were financially stable. My life, my dreams, everything I had worked for, everything we had built together was all being controlled by a lie. He had been using our savings to support this double life, and I had been none the wiser. I wasn't about to let this destroy me any longer. I was done being the fool. I had given everything to this marriage, to him, to us. But now I had to take back control. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of his lies. But how? How was I going to expose him for what he had done? How was I going to make sure that I could finally rebuild my life, my dreams, without him? That's when the idea hit me, an idea that would change everything. I knew that I had to take control of this situation, not just for myself, but for my future. I had tried to be calm, tried to reason, tried to keep everything together for the sake of our family. But there was no fixing this now. There was no more pretending that everything was okay. The truth had to come out, and it had to come out in a way that he could never deny. I decided that I would expose him publicly. I couldn't let him just lie his way out of it like he always did. So I made a decision that would change everything. I invited him to a live TV interview where I knew he would be caught off guard. The world would see the man he really was. When we sat down for that interview, I could see his nerves. He had no idea what was coming. He thought this would be another controlled situation where he could keep up the lie. But that's when I exposed everything. The affair, the lies, the money, everything he had done behind my back. The truth was finally out in the open, and there was no way to take it back. His reaction? You won't believe it. He was completely stunned. His face went pale, his words stumbled, and he couldn't even look me in the eye. It was like watching a man who had built his entire life on lies suddenly have everything he ever knew come crashing down. For once, he couldn't escape the truth. Exposing him wasn't about revenge. It was about taking back my life. I wasn't looking to hurt him. I just wanted to be free. I had spent so many years supporting him, putting his dreams ahead of my own, that I had lost sight of who I was. But that interview, that moment when I exposed everything, gave me back the power. I knew that I wasn't just exposing an affair. I was exposing the years of manipulation, the years of being made to feel small, insignificant, and unimportant. And when the truth came out, I was free. Finally free. With the affair out in the open, I could finally rebuild my life. I didn't need him anymore. I could start living for myself. I went back to school, started my own business, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my future. My dreams were no longer on hold. They were real again. The consequences of my actions, they were more far-reaching than I could have imagined. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing my kids that strength doesn't come from being silent or submissive. Strength comes from standing up, from reclaiming your voice, and from refusing to be a victim anymore. When the truth came out, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. But it wasn't easy. Exposing my husband, the man I had trusted more than anyone, wasn't a decision I made lightly. For months, I had been living in a state of uncertainty, in a world where nothing felt solid, where every foundation I had built was suddenly crumbling beneath me. I was afraid of what the truth would bring, afraid of how my life would change. But in the end, what I learned from this experience is that sometimes the only way to move forward is to expose the truth, even when it hurts. And I'm not just talking about exposing the affair. I'm talking about exposing everything, the lies, the fears, the insecurities, and the doubts that had been eating away at me for so long. Before I found out about the affair, I had convinced myself that I was strong. I had convinced myself that everything I had done for my family, for my husband, was enough. But deep down, I knew something was missing. I had ignored the warning signs, brushed off my own needs for the sake of keeping everything together. I thought that love meant sacrificing everything for the other person. But in doing so, I lost myself. I didn't just lose myself in the sense that I forgot about my own dreams. I lost my identity, my worth, my sense of control. The affair wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a reminder of everything I had been hiding from. The truth was painful, yes, but it was also freeing. Once I exposed the affair and everything that came with it, I wasn't just leaving behind my husband. I was leaving behind the fear, the insecurity, and the doubts I had about myself. I realized that I didn't need him, his lies, or his betrayal to be the person I wanted to be. I could finally be myself again. For the first time in years, I felt like I was breathing again. I could hear my own thoughts. I could feel my own heart beating without the constant weight of doubt hanging over me. I didn't have to question my worth anymore. I didn't have to wonder if I was good enough, because the truth had set me free. I wasn't living in the shadow of someone else's lies. I was standing in the light of my own truth. Exposing the affair was a painful yet empowering moment. It gave me back my life, my dreams, and my freedom. I knew that everything I had worked for, the marriage, the family, the house, the future, wasn't real. It was built on a foundation of lies, and that foundation had cracked. But what was left after the truth came out was the most important thing I could have ever asked for: my own sense of self-worth. I was no longer the woman defined by her husband's success or by the lies he had told me. I was Julia, the woman who took back her life, who found the courage to expose the truth, and who reclaimed her dreams. At first, the idea of moving on felt impossible. How do you pick up the pieces of a shattered life and rebuild something whole again? How do you heal from a betrayal that cuts so deep? But as I started taking small steps, I realized that every moment of pain, every tear I shed, was leading me toward a stronger, more confident version of myself. The truth hurt, but it also healed. I learned that you can't fix a broken life with more lies. You can only heal with truth. I had been living in the dark for so long, trying to hold everything together. But once the light of truth shined through, everything started to make sense. I started to believe in myself again. For the first time in so long, I had a future that was mine to create. I didn't have to wait for someone else to give me permission to live my life. I had been waiting for validation from someone who was never going to give it to me. But now I understood that the only person I needed validation from was me. I was enough. And that realization changed everything. I took control of my life in a way I never had before. I didn't just stand up to my husband, I stood up to myself. I began to rediscover my passions, things I had put aside for years. I went back to work, pursued my dreams, and started living for myself. I stopped letting my past define me, and I started defining my future. The journey wasn't easy, but it was mine. And every step I took toward rebuilding my life felt like reclaiming a part of myself that I had lost. In the end, I came out stronger than I ever thought possible. I didn't just move on from the affair, I moved on from the idea that I wasn't enough, from the fear that had kept me trapped in a life that wasn't mine. I learned that the hardest thing isn't facing the truth. It's accepting that you deserve better than the lies. And once I accepted that, I began to see that I could build something new, something even better, for myself. When you expose the truth, you don't just free yourself from the lies, you unlock a whole new future. And that's exactly what happened. My life was no longer defined by betrayal or by what someone else had done to me. It was defined by the choices I made, the strength I found within myself, and the future I chose to create. The consequences of exposing the affair were more far-reaching than I ever imagined, not just for my husband, but for everyone involved. It forced me to face my fears, to stand up for myself, and to show the world that I would no longer be silent. But the biggest consequence, the most profound change, was the transformation I went through as a result. I became the person I always should have been, the person who believed in herself, who trusted her instincts, and who no longer feared the truth. I knew I was no longer the person I had been, and that was the greatest gift I could have given myself. My life was mine again, and no one could take that away from me. The road to healing wasn't easy, but it was mine to walk, and it was filled with the promise of a future I could finally control. So, if you're watching this and you've ever been in a situation where you felt trapped, betrayed, or unsure of who you were, remember this: you are enough. Exposing the truth, no matter how painful, is the first step toward freedom. It might be scary, it might hurt, but once you face the truth, you'll realize that the most powerful thing you can do is stand up for yourself. When you do that, you unlock a future that's truly yours, one that's built on honesty, strength, and self-love. So don't let the fear of the truth hold you back. Let it set you free, just as it did for me. As I stand here now, telling you my story, I want you to know that this journey wasn't easy for me. The pain, the heartbreak, and the betrayal all felt like they would swallow me whole. But as time passed, I started to heal. The more I faced the truth, the more I realized something that has stayed with me every day since. I am stronger than I ever thought I was. And that strength is something I want you to remember as you walk away from this story. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever been in a situation where you felt betrayed, unsure of who you were, or caught in a life that wasn't yours, I want you to take a moment and reflect. What would you have done in my shoes? How would you have handled the betrayal, the lies, and the truth coming to light? It's never easy to look inside yourself and realize how much you've been hurt. But doing so can be the first step toward healing. And I know that some of you watching this might be in a situation right now where you're feeling like you're trapped, like you're not enough, or like you don't have the strength to leave. But let me tell you, you do. You are enough. The truth is scary, but it's liberating. The first step I took, speaking my truth, was the hardest, but it was also the most freeing moment of my life. I want you to know that you don't have to face this alone. If you've ever been hurt, betrayed, or confused about your own worth, you're not alone. There are so many of us out there who have gone through similar experiences, and that's why I'm asking you, share your thoughts with me in the comments below. I want to hear your stories, your experiences, and your thoughts. What would you have done in my shoes? Your words could make all the difference to someone else who's struggling, who might not have the courage to speak up yet. I know that the pain I felt during those moments is still raw for some of you watching, and that's okay. The road to healing is not linear. It has its ups and downs, its moments of joy and sadness. But the more we share our experiences, the more we can help each other heal. That's what this community is about. We are here for each other, even in the darkest times. I want to tell you this right now. If you want to see more shocking stories like this, stories that are real, raw, and full of heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications now. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. The stories I'm sharing aren't just about betrayal and heartbreak. They're about the strength we find in ourselves when we face the darkest parts of our lives. We're going to dive deep into more stories of redemption, more stories of reclaiming our lives and dreams. You won't believe some of the twists and turns that are ahead. This journey is only just beginning, and I want you to be a part of it. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This is a space for those who want to be stronger, who want to learn, and who are ready to take back control of their lives. And I promise you, the stories that are coming up next will be some of the most powerful ones yet. You don't want to miss out. In the next video, I'm going to share an even bigger shocker that you won't see coming. You'll find out how betrayal can sometimes lead to unexpected twists, how life can completely change in a moment, and how one decision can turn everything you thought you knew upside down. This next chapter is one that took me years to fully understand. Trust me, it's going to blow your mind. The kind of moment where you'll realize that sometimes the hardest decisions you make are the ones that set you free. So make sure to stay tuned because what's coming next is something you won't want to miss. The truth has a way of finding us, even when we try to hide from it. And when it does, it changes everything. Before I wrap up, I just want to say one last thing. I want you to remember that you have the power to rewrite your story at any moment. If you're in a situation that feels impossible, if you're struggling with pain that seems insurmountable, know this: you have the power to change it. Life is too short to live in fear, to live in silence, to live with the weight of someone else's mistakes. You are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, not because of what you've done for others, but because of who you are. Your dreams are not dependent on anyone else's approval, and your future is in your hands. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I'm walking this path with you. We're all on this journey together, and I'm here to share every part of it with you. Because when you find your voice, when you stand up for yourself, when you expose the truth, you take back the power that was always meant to be yours. And trust me, once you do, there's no going back. You'll be unstoppable. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been through something similar, or if you're just looking for the strength to move forward, please leave a comment below. I truly want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your advice. What would you have done in my shoes? Your story might just inspire someone else who's going through their own struggle right now. And don't forget, subscribe and turn on those notifications. You don't want to miss the next video because it's going to be even more powerful than this one.